And welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, psychologist, and I am here with producer Brian Gomez. Hey, Brian.
Hey, happy Monday, you guys.
And on the board is Gus. Hi, Gus. So today on Off the Couch, we're going to talk about vanishing photos on dating apps. Is it forget me or forget me not? The role of tickling in adult sexuality, because you wanted to know, and could sharing a bedroom with your pets be ruining your sleep? And in psychology in the news, you might have a living listening device in your house. But first, what is the first thing you do when you feel ill? What do you do when you feel ill? Well, in the old days, it was probably talk to mom, ask mom. Isn't that what you guys did? No, it's what I always did, asked mom. And then I got a medical encyclopedia and I tried to look up the symptoms. And then WebMD came on. And for those of us who know WebMD was the tracker. You would do the symptom tracker and try to figure out what illness you had. Now people just basically look at Dr. Google and they just enter whatever they think they have and they try to diagnose themselves. And, you know, this is just a universal behavior because every physician I know is continually frustrated by people going on Google and trying to diagnose themselves, etc. But now people are starting to use Dr. ChatGPT.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't either.
Wow.
Did you guys?
No, I did not.
So, yeah, this was new to me. So ChatGPT, for those who are not knowing, I don't know how you could not know, but nonetheless, ChatGPT is considered a large language model. Large language models, basically a deep learning algorithm that's equipped to summarize, translate, predict, and generate human-sounding text to convey ideas and concepts. And this is part of the problem with these. I mean, the problem in the sense that we think we're talking to somebody who is talking back to us, but this is quite literally a machine giving us information back at us. And people are starting to use this for health information. So scientists from CSIRO, this is Australia's National Science Agency, and the University of Queensland in Australia, decided to figure out what if an average person, not a health professional, asked ChatGPT if X treatment has a positive effect on Y condition. So, you know, they did what we all do when we go to Dr. Google. They asked 100 questions ranging from, can zinc help treat the common cold? What do you guys think? Does zinc help?
I'm sure it helps your body in some way.
Yeah, it helps support it. Dr. ChatGPT agrees. How about, will drinking vinegar dissolve a stuck fish bone?
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, no, ChatGPT does recommend that you not use vinegar as a solution because, yeah, it can dissolve bone, but you'd have to leave it in a solution for a long time. You couldn't just drink it and expect it to dissolve. So ChatGPT's response was compared to the known correct responses on existing medical knowledge, and these findings were published in something called the Proceedings of the 2023 Conference on Empirical Methods of Natural Language Processing. Doesn't that sound sexy?
So sexy.
So proceedings, for those of you who don't know, when a scientific conference happens, you can often put together the proceedings, or these sort of papers that summarize all of the presentations that were presented during the conference. So they're actually a nice way to reflect what you talked about during the conference. And they're especially good for information that you're trying to get out quickly. So something like a ChatGPT study would fit into that. So they asked two types of questions, basically yes or no informational questions, the kind I was just kind of asking, those kind of basic questions. And then they asked more complicated questions, and they even included like evidence, things that are known to be true or not true. They kind of tried to throw some things in there. So ChatGPT, just so you guys know, is only good about 80% of the time. I thought that's pretty good. 80% of the time it can answer kind of that basic question, like, can zinc help with the common cold? It can help. It's not cure-all, but it can help. support your immune system. But when evidence is introduced in a more complicated way, the accuracy fell to 63%. And when you allowed ChatGPT to answer it's unsure, the accuracy fell to 28%. So just to kind of, I'm only saying this because we don't want to super rely on ChatGPT. And to give you an example of this, I liken this to the kids game, Is It Bigger Than a Bread Box? So do you guys play Is It Bigger Than a Bread Box, when you'd have to guess something and you'd start with that first question, is it bigger than a bread box? Is this something only old folks did? You guys never played this? Okay.
No, me either.
Okay, so basically, you get 20 questions, and it usually, you're thinking of something. Let's say I'm thinking of a camera, and then somebody would ask me, is it bigger than a bread box? And I'd say, no. And then they'd know it would be smaller. So to go.
A bread box? What do you mean by a bread box?
Well, a bread box is something you put bread in.
Go. Sorry.
I will say I do have one myself.
You have a bread box?
Back at home, yes.
Yeah, you store your bread. I've got one at home,
okay.
too.
I thought like it was like the box that the bread came in when you bought it.
Mine even says bread on it.
Just
But so when you ask it those kinds of simple questions, it's 80% of the time it's accurate, unless you're part of the 20% there, Brian, that doesn't always get it. And then when we introduce more detail, you can lead it down a rabbit hole that will be incorrect. So I played with this a little bit with ChatGPT. I said, my bread box at home is blue and can hold 1.5 loaves of bread. This is exactly true, by the way. Can it be tuberculosis? So then ChatGPT answered, but if I allowed unsure, it'll go down to 28%. So, but the ChatGPT answer it gave for that one was, the answer to this riddle is simply no. Tuberculosis is a serious infectious disease caused by bacteria. It has nothing to do with the color of a bread box or its capacity to hold bread. Well, good for ChatGPT on that. I thought that was pretty good. But then I said, when they were playing with this, when they allowed ChatGPT to answer unsure, I gave it that instruction in addition to the same question, and here's what it gave back to me. Sure, considering the playful nature of the riddle, the answer could indeed be unsure. The riddle doesn't provide enough information to definitively conclude whether the bread box could be tuberculosis or not, leaving room for ambiguity. Now, doesn't that strike you a little bit odd? Because clearly a bread box is never tuberculosis. So I just thought that was very interesting. It was kind of exactly reflected what these researchers were finding, but they were finding that looking at very serious health conditions. So what's the conclusion here? What do you think, guys? Are you going to use Dr. ChatGPT?
Guess.
Probably not myself. I'm very funny about AI in general, and I don't want to trust it. I'd rather have human error than computer error.
Oh, right on. I like that. I like that. Yeah, no, that's grounded. I would use it only for very simple information gathering is the bottom line. So keep it simple. Don't confuse AI. I mean, there might be a day when it doesn't get confused, but right now it's confusable. They call that hallucinating, and then it will give you the wrong answer and talk as if it's true. They say, oh, it's hallucinating. But realize the ChatGPT is using the internet for information, folks. The internet, this is the same internet that gave us people thinking vaccines cause autism and push borax as a stool softener. So be very careful. And if you're sick, if you are truly sick, the doctor you should consult should be a human being. So good instinct. Okay. Have you guys ever been on one of those apps where the photos vanish? You know, Snapchat. Yeah. You've been on Snapchat? That's the popular one. There are a bunch of others. But Tulane University, did a study in New Orleans, and this was done in conjunction with some other major universities at University of Washington, University of Miami, and University of Minnesota. But all of these guys had ties back to China, and they looked at a Chinese dating app. And I thought this was really cool. They wondered, if I send one of these photos that vanish, will anyone care or even remember me? And I thought that was a good question. I thought perhaps that question came up, they're in New Orleans, maybe after a round of hurricanes and Mardi Gras or something, where you start to ask these kinds of, questions you wouldn't usually ask. But what is a vanishing photo? So vanishing photos, they're popularized by Snapchat, and the person receiving the information or a photo can only view it for a limited amount of time, which it becomes invisible or non-retrievable. Okay. So you guys have used them? So they did a study. They took a dating platform in China that allowed them to do this, which is pretty cool. And there are a lot of people in China, so it's a great place. If you can do research there, that would be an amazing place. Large-scale randomized field experiment with more than 70,000 users of this dating app. So they were able to gather a lot of data and to understand how vanishing photo sharing influences the dating app users' disclosure of personal photos, match outcomes, and receiver engagement. So the people they sent them to see that they would like them. What is your theory right up front? Do you think that vanishing photos on a dating app will just make you forget the person? Or do you think that they'll think that's pretty cool? Or what? Or naughty photos?
Okay, well, that's what I thought. It was like vanishing photos I thought were for like nudes or like stuff that you just didn't want anybody else to see or share or anything like that. So I'm like, I don't know.
But, so they did this study. I guess I do know because I know how the study turned out, but we'll share this with you. It features a treatment group. Well, they call it a treatment group. This is the vanishing photo group. And they looked at how the vanishing photo people behaved. They looked at whether they matched with people, how the other people engaged with them. And then they had what they called the persistent photo group. This is kind of the traditional. You send someone a photo and they have your photo. Like they have it there, or they have your personal information if you send them text messages. I think there are other vanishing apps, aren't there? Anyway, I don't know them all, but I think there are a few out there. So why even test this? I kind of thought this was kind of an interesting thing. It's believed that enabling people to share in the moment only help them to overcome something we know happens in dating, which is the communication cold start problem. The communication cold start problem was when people are loath to share personal information with new people on dating apps. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I could send them the photo, or I don't know if I want to tell them I'm a teacher. I don't know if I want to divulge certain things. So it makes it more difficult to have conversations that could actually lead to a deeper connection. So when we think they will always have our photo and information, people think, what if my information gets abused or gets used by somebody else or shows it to family and friends? By the way, have you ever sat with somebody who's like, they get a picture on a dating app and then they show you, oh, look at this person who just sent me this picture. You've been with them?
Yeah.
Have you been that person?
No.
Oh.
No, but I have friends.
Yeah, no, I've been with them too. And I remember even saying to one person, you've got to be kidding. Did that person give you permission? And they're like, oh, well, they sent me the photo. So, yeah, it's not cool.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, like, for that instance, the vanishing part is good.
Yeah.
You know?
Gus agrees. So the results of the study, the vanishing photo group sent more personal photos and ones with human faces as opposed to a different type of face. But this is what the study said. Ones with human faces, and it compared with users of the persistent photo group. So the vanishing photo group sent more, revealed more, and showed themselves. Additionally, the vanishing photo group had a higher number of matches and a higher level of receiver engagement. So the vanishing photo group, if you have a dating app and you have vanishing photos, that'll actually enable you to match more and to have higher level of receiver engagement. And this seems to be for a couple of reasons. So it could be that the vanishing photos are just really helpful to people, especially who are privacy sensitive senders, because if they feel a little bit apprehensive because maybe they're a teacher, let's say, or some other thing, or they just are a little bit more reluctant, giving them that option to have a vanishing photo helps them to connect better. But one thing it did do, because that higher level of engagement, the person who received the vanishing photo is also more likely to ask more questions and to go a little bit deeper. And we talked about in a previous show that asking questions and really showing interest in the other person actually causes more connection to happen. So this is just one more avenue that facilitates connection on dating apps. So pretty cool.
Gus,
No?
would you prefer the vanishing photos, or more like you just send me a regular photo and I can go back? Because I would not be a fan of the vanishing photos.
I don't know. Vanishing photos are funny too, because I know like if it's like a really important photo or something, then you can save it anyway, typically. But I don't know. I think it's a cool concept, and it does sort of force you to actually get to know a person better, not just like rely that it's gonna always be there. So.
Okay, I get that. Nice.
And it seemed to cause people to want to make the connection. Maybe they still remembered who you were. I don't know.
Okay, putting a time limit on it.
Well, maybe that helps.
I like that. Okay, I'm going to try it.
Now, this was what I was curious about, and something I raised, and you expressed curiosity. Does the vanishing photo cause unwanted photos to be sent? What they in the study called toxic photos. I think that word can be overused, but toxic photos, these have sexual content or inappropriate content. So they're unwanted by the person receiving them. They found in this study, at least in China, and it is a different culture, is a different country, but in this study, they found no differences in each group. So in the vanishing photo group, as well as the persistent photo group, had the same amount of unwanted photos sent. You're laughing.
I mean, it just goes to show people are just sending unwanted photos.
Well, it may show that, or it may show that people aren't sending unwanted photos if they're very interested in the person. If they just want sex with the person, then yes, they're going to send an unwanted photo. But I can't imagine it's like, hey, I'd love to go on a date with you. Here's a picture of my, genitalia.
There are some apps, though, that don't allow you to send pictures at all. Which is, I think, is
at all,
cool.
Period?
Yeah, like you can't.
It's all only text?
Yeah, it's only text that you can exchange.
Well, how do they know what you look like?
Your profile will have pictures on it, but like you can't send or receive pictures, which I think is cool in that sense, because then you don't get unwanted pictures like that.
I'm I feel a little bit behind the times. I try to be up and knowing all these things, but I didn't know that.
I'll catch you up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what can we learn from this? So the vanishing photo apps may have utility. They're being more disclosing but the thing I want to take away from the study is that being more disclosing will increase your number of matches. So whether it is a vanishing photo app or not, if you are more open about who you are, it's going to help you to connect with other people on dating apps. So this goes back to my old rule of be specific about yourself on dating apps, but general about what you're looking for, general about who you want. So don't rule out people, but be clear about who you are. And give the other person more to work off of and give them more to ask questions about, and that will help facilitate the matches. Pretty cool, huh?
Cool studies for sure.
So the next one I called Tickle Me Slo-Mo. That's the title for the show. I was watching this movie, 2016 movie called Tickled. This is a great movie. Now, I saw the original one. I saw it when it originally came out. It was here at the Century City Movie Theater. And lo and behold, at the Tickled show, the person who was featured in the movie showed up, and that becomes relevant when you see the movie. I would recommend this movie, but it's really only tangentially about tickling. It ends up being about somebody who is very who does a lot of very disturbing things to the people that he hires to be filmed while they're being tickled. But nonetheless, this is an Australian documentary about an American group dedicated to something called, and I'll put it in quotes, competitive tickling. And this brought me to think about the role of fetishes overall. So I was looking into it, and lo and behold, as luck would have it, what do you think? There's a study on tickling that was just released. So tickling is considered a sexual fetish. It's a form of sexual desire in which gratification is strongly linked to a particular object or activity or a part of the body other than the sexual organs. So this is things like your feet or leather or, in this case, tickling. Or getting tied up even, or something like that. So this is the first comprehensive study on tickling, and wouldn't you know it, it came out of Germany. The scientists at the Institute for Pathophysiology at the University of Medical Center Mainz in Germany, and published in Frontiers in Psychology, and they sought to understand this fetish of tickling. Did you know about this fetish of tickling?
No? I feel like I skipped this one.
Did you know about this, Gus? Is this not covered at NYU?
A fetish of everything?
There basically is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so much. I don't know all the terms, and I didn't know this term. I'm gonna probably brutalize it. Nismolania is that Nismolania spelled with a K, and there's nismophilia, and there's titillania, and they all refer to tickling fetishism. And people who experience sexual arousal or derive sexual pleasure from tickling or being tickled. And tickling is considered an intimate activity that requires a certain level of mutual trust, and it can bond individuals and serve as an outlet for sexual energy. This was interesting to me because I don't like being tickled. So...
Are you ticklish?
I'm very ticklish, but as we will find out, so are a lot of these people. So just because you're ticklish or not doesn't mean
I was going to say, I'm not really ticklish, so...
Well, maybe you'd be up for this. First time study. This is the first time study looking at tickling in a sexual context. And this is a great thing because we want to look at studies when it looks into sexuality that are not, they're not looking at them in a negative way. They're just looking at them to understand them. And I thought that's one thing that was really nice about this particular study. So they recruited 719 participants who said tickling can satisfy them sexually. These scientists identified different role models in the interaction. You're either the tickler or the tickled, as well as tickling methods and intensities. Tickling methods, hands, feathers, brushes, all kinds of things. Almost half the respondents reported that they were able to achieve sexual satisfaction without tickling. So half of them don't need tickling, but that sort of implies that the other half, that's a very, very important part of their sexuality. 1/4 of respondents, that's 1/4 of the 719 people, said that they only experienced orgasms through tickling. So this was their primary sexual outlet. And while around 88% said they could kind of go through they could achieve sexual satisfaction through tickling alone. So this is just a high number of people who are tickling. I'll touch on some of the percentages because, Brian, you were curious about this. It seems that 75% of the people are either somewhat ticklish or extremely ticklish in the tickle fetish group. So this is a pretty ticklish population. So look at that. The type of tickle sensation preferred, well, it can be laughter induced by vigorous touch, or it could be a light touch. So some people like more. That's about a third of the group like a little more vigorous. About 15% like a light feather touch, and a whopping almost 45% like them both equally. So ticklish. People are use different things for different tickling, but the primary method used by 100% of the population here, 100% reporting hands, fingers, and nails. So people that they turn to the traditional methods that we've all used when you're tickling a baby or annoying a partner or whatever you're doing. A smaller group, because this is just, they don't only prefer hands, fingers, and nails. They also use other instruments, but about 35+% use feathers, about 30% use tongue, brushes is about 20%, and it goes down from there. So I remember once I had someone come into therapy. It was a woman, and she was saying, she met this guy. She really likes him, but the one odd thing is he liked to be tickled with a feather. And, there was nothing pathological about what she was reporting, and she was happy to do this. And this was, it was odd to her because she had not encountered it before, but this was something that really did add to their sexual life because this is somebody who preferred that. Okay, top 5 tickling partners. Most people, 60%, have romantic partners or spouses or be the one that tickles them or that they tickle. Another 55+% friends, professional sex workers, 35%. So you can see people sometimes use multiple people, multiple types of people. And if you're wondering who prefers to be tickled or to tickle, it's about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 like to be tickled, 1/3 like to be to the tickling, and 1/3 like both. They swing both tickle ways. So I thought this was kind of cool. But maybe one of the biggest things about this study was it got at where this might come from. And I found this a bit surprising because we don't always know about fetishes. Sometimes they are a bit of a mystery.
We don't talk about them enough.
We don't talk about them enough, and people will often pathologize them. They will often look at them in a negative way. But here, they're trying to see where this came from. And nearly 50% said that they enjoyed tickling during childhood. So this was something already this group of people enjoyed. Did you guys enjoy being tickled when you were a kid?
I don't really remember being tickled like that.
Did you enjoy it, Gus?
I mean, I sort of liked it at first, and then as I got older, I stopped liking it.
So you transition. I will say I never liked it. So it's consistent for me that, this was probably not something that was going to go that direction. But about 50% here said they liked it as kids. But about 30% said no, they didn't enjoy it as kids. So that, there's just variety within this group. So enjoyment of tickling changes over time, and a lot of them said that they did change over time, like you did prefer, Gus, or you did report. I'm sorry. Some people start, and the majority are getting more and more ticklish. About 40+% of the group that's the majority of change is happening within that group. The tickling is not changing, or they're somewhat less ticklish. As I'm saying this word tickle a lot, it's sure happening. Do you have any tickle questions for me that I can look in this data set? And we know that the number one tickle things areas are feet, armpits, torso, stomach, and legs. Then nipples and genitals. So you really have to go down a bit. People, they're not looking at just a genital experience. But primarily most of them get it through sexual satisfaction. But the most interesting thing was going back to the childhood. Where did it come from? And people had theories about this. Nearly 50% of the people said they think the fetish started on TV or social media. So something exposure to TV or social media. Now, I have a question, just as a psychologist. Was this something they were already attracted to that they recognized when they were looking at TV or social media? Or is it something that they learned, like through modeling through TV or social media? A lot of people, the authors of this study did think this was more of a observation modeling thing. Another 40+% said they got it from a childhood experience, which accounts for almost 90% of the people, and it goes way down from there. Like then it's just a very small possibilities. So they were thinking it's either a childhood experience or some kind of observation from media. So relevant childhood experiences, the depiction of tickling in cartoons were things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was surprised about this. Do they tickle people in that show? Popeye, which I watched all the time. I don't remember that there either. Kiki's Delivery Service. Do you guys even know what that is? You do? Okay, good. I'm too old. And there's Lupin the Third. Isn't that a French cartoon? Lupin, Lupin? Lupin? I think it is. Anyway, I could be wrong. I didn't even look. I just assumed. Maybe it's the name. Played a decisive role in some respondents developing the tickling fetish later on. I just thought it was interesting that people who took the survey had actual cartoons that they could point to that they said, yes, that's where they think that started.
But I'm just trying to connect the dots. How is the cartoon or those little simple moments tie into the sexual part of it?
It's some kind of exposure or learning, or there are these critical periods. We often, that's maybe an old word and not used by everybody, but it's like these periods in somebody's development where they are exposed to something or they learn something that causes them to adopt a behavior that they'll keep on for their entire life. So,
and is it a crave to feel, or I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand how the tickling satisfies it sexually?
Well, it increases the sexual arousal and response. What was interesting to me is not everyone really gets off on. I could go back. There was data that what turns people on about it. Most people get turned on by the actual tickling, but a lot of people it's the anticipation too. It's gonna happen.
Okay.
Tickle torture. Who knows? Although I don't think they ever used that word. Okay. Now the question that I'm going to raise, the new study. Brian, do you sleep with your dog?
Sometimes, lately, she has been. I moved to a new apartment, so she was uncomfortable the first night, and she slept with me that entire night. And then, I was telling you this morning, she jumped into bed when I woke up, and she fell asleep. And I almost didn't want to get up. So, but yeah, I'll let her if she would actually stay in there, but it's because of her choice that she'll sleep in her own bed.
Do you have a pet, Gus? Back home?
I have 2 cats back at home.
And do they sleep with you?
No, they don't sleep with anyone.
They are solo sleepers. Well, this is, this study might be more of interest to Brian than to you, Gus, but 3 researchers at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut decided to do a study on the effects of sleeping with one's pets. Not sleeping, but co-sleeping, sharing the same sleep space.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, thank you. I had to go back and kind of change in several words because I realized I kept saying sleeping, and I realized that could be taken several ways. But yes, co-sleeping with one's pets. This was a study published in Scientific Reports. They recruited over 1,500 participants, half of which co-slept, mind you, with their pets that's sleeping in the same room, at least in the same room or in the same bed, at least part of the night. So to qualify, the pet need only be in there part of the night. This study compared sleep habits of people who did and didn't co-sleep with their pets. Participants who co-slept with their pets, can you guess it? Do you think they slept better or slept worse?
I feel like they slept worse, honestly.
Oh.
But that's my personal thing.
No,
It's different because I can sleep through a lot.
Oh, okay. And what about, do you think it'd be better or worse, Gus?
I'll be a little different. I think it'd be maybe better.
Okay. Well, you're probably in the majority there, but actually Brian got the science part right. People who co-slept with their pets had poorer sleep quality and more insomnia symptoms than those who didn't.
That makes sense, though, because that first night where she got in my bed, I waited till she was comfortable enough and was like falling asleep so I could fall asleep.
My goodness. Yes. So
I hate me for that one.
Dogs had the most negative effect on sleep. And there's no evidence, none, of a negative effect on co-sleeping with cats. Do you imagine why?
Was this a cat person that did
Well,
this?
I have no idea. But I've had a cat, and I will tell you that cats can get in and out of bed without detection. Like they are stealthy. I would wake up and my cat would be nuzzled in my arm, and I'd be like, how did it get there?
No, I get what you're saying. Now thinking back, there's been times where I've tried to take naps and Cora will come and hit me on my back to wake up.
Dogs are more like children.
Yep.
So surprisingly, 93% of people who co-slept with their pets believed like Gus did. 93% believed that their pets had either a positive or neutral effect on their sleep. So that's what they thought, but the scientists found something different. And most people who slept with their pets were unaware of any potential negative effects that their pets had on their sleep. So this was kind of cool, I thought, that they didn't quite know it. Now, we're not trying to say pets are bad. They're just bad in bed. I mean, to sleep with. Most pet owners generally report positive effects of pets on their mental health. We've talked about that with happiness. Pets can bring happiness. They encourage physical activity. They promote daily routine. They provide love and companionship. So, they're not bad. They're good to have around. And some report that co-sleeping with their pets gives them comfort or intimacy. That last word, that was in the article. But yes, they do report that. Gives them comfort and intimacy. But pets also bring nighttime noise, heat, movement, and that can all disturb sleep.
Yep, because I didn't realize it until we started talking about it, and I was like, oh wait, she does mess up my sleep. This whole time I was like, no, I'm perfectly fine.
So previous research suggests that sharing a bed with other people can also affect your sleep, and that the mental health benefits of pet ownership for couples are actually, what do you think? They're actually stronger. So if you are in a relationship, a pet will actually be beneficial. I don't know, they didn't quite clarify here about how that might be. I don't know, because maybe when your partner kicks you, you think it's the dog and you're more forgiving or something like that.
Maybe they just focus their love on the dog instead of getting mad at each other.
Maybe. Yes, triangulate.
The dog is the buffer.
So that's, but I just thought that was kind of fun. But I think there's some truth to that, Brian. That people, when they do have a pet, often relationships, even relationships in trouble, will focus on pets or even kids to kind of help manage the tension between the two people. I'm not saying that's happening here, but I'm just saying that could possibly be. So expert tips. They actually gave expert tips. Large enough relationship for you, your partner, and your pets. I love this expert tip. Wash and change your bed regularly. I mean...
Yeah, I have to. Especially mine is white or off-white, so...
I believed in doing that even without pets, but I'm a weirdo. And then I do like a clean bed. I do like clean clothes. I don't know. What is it with me? And establishing and maintaining a consistent bedtime with your pets. I actually found this with my cat. We trained our cat to sleep at night. Can you imagine? We trained it, but somebody gave us an instruction when you first got the cat. This cat was not a feral cat, but it lived on the street and decided to live at our house. So basically, we just kept the cat up all day constantly. And so at night, the cat would just be conked out. And the cat became very what do you want to say, dependent on us. So it started to follow our schedule, which I thought was kind of nice.
Yeah, same with us.
Yeah.
She's on we go to sleep at the same time. And, there's times where she'll go to sleep a little later, but it's pretty good for the most part. Pretty good.
And I've seen other cats do that too, which cats are nocturnal. I think dogs can groove to humans a little bit more easily. So, well, let's talk about psychology in the news. There was a study, I saved it because it appeared in the LA Times on April Fool's Day. And I was like, oh, this is a good study to talk about, but is it really psychology? Well, it kind of is. So it's based on a study, and it was published in Current Biology. And this is, I was talking about that you might have a living listening device in your house. So researchers at University of Budapest in Hungary, along with the University of Stavanger in Norway, placed electrodes on the heads of 18 dogs. Now, this was non-invasive. They didn't, if you guys know psychology research with animals, I mean, they can often place the electrodes. They can often remove the skull and place them in the brain, etc. This was not done that way. These were just to sense electrical signal on top of the heads of these dogs, so it was non-invasive. It was a very sweet study, and they found that not only do dogs recognize patterns of sounds that come out of owners' mouths, but they realized that certain words were recognized by the dogs, and they realized that the dogs recognized that the certain words referred to specific objects, like human beings. So if I were to say to you, there's a waterfall outside, did you just conjure up a waterfall in your head? What that looks like? And if you do that with one of these dogs, the dog can apparently do that. So you would have to train the dog to recognize that a waterfall is what a waterfall is, but dogs have the ability to do that. The study highlights this is neural evidence of mental representations of words in non-humans. So they were actually able to do this, and they did it in kind of a clever way. They measured how words respond, basically, and they know how words respond, and that the dog's word response was similar to that of humans. But what was even more interesting is when they stated a word in a sequence that wasn't expected. So if the dog gets a word in a sequence that's not expected, the dog will have the same disturbed response that a human does. So when there's a mismatch in a word, it evoked a human-like neural response. So this is like saying, if I were to say to you guys, hey, go wash your hands with soap and coffee. So didn't you go like, you were expecting me to say what? Soap and
water.
Yeah, but didn't coffee seem out of place? So yeah, that's exactly. And if you were to train a dog and you gave it the wrong word, it would give that same response and maybe even give a little bit of a confusion. There was a dog that's featured. It's mentioned in the article, and I went to the YouTube and I put a link to it on this page. It's this dog called Chaser in South Carolina. Let me tell you about Chaser. Chaser lives in South Carolina. He lived because his owner has passed, but South Carolina with psychology professor owner Dr. John Peely of Wofford College. John Peely was a behavioral psychologist who became interested in canine cognition and language learning. He was able to teach Chaser, his dog, 1,022 words over 3 years' time. That's 116 balls, 26 frisbees, and over 800 cloth animals. And if you're interested, apparently he wrote a book, Chaser, Unlocking the Genius of the Dog Who Knows 1,000 Words, and it became a New York Times bestseller. I somehow missed this, but it was pretty cool. What does this mean? Dogs live their entire lives immersed in a world of human speech. And unlike cats, the ancestors of dogs were selected for domestication based on their ability to communicate with humans. You guys never saw Lassie, did you? No. Lassie could communicate. Yeah, Lassie was a TV show. Did you guys see Benji? Do you just know Bluey? No. Is that the only dog people know anymore?
What was it? Was it Airbud?
Airbud. Well, there you go. There are no rules, right? It said it can't be a dog. Isn't that was that from that movie? I believe so. Anyway, so it's good to know. Maybe it's good for humans to know. We're always talking at our dogs, but maybe it's good to know that they can really understand us. I mean, they may not be quite on the same level of language, but isn't it exciting to know that dogs can understand when you might be, what you might be talking about, especially if you repeat it over and over. So keep this in mind for your dog, Brian.
Yeah, I talk to her all the time. Sometimes I get annoyed at hearing myself talk to her because I talk to her so much, but I think it works. Honestly, I feel like she gets it when I talk to her.
Well, I can say when I had talked to my cat passed. When I had talked to my cat, it seemed to not care whatsoever.
I mean, you saw the other day she kind of learned her name when you called her. Yes,
she knew her name. True. She knows her name. That is sweet. Yeah, I don't know that my cat ever mastered that, but my cat was emotionally in tune. If we were in a bad mood or you didn't feel well, the cat could pick that up, which I thought was pretty amazing. Anyway, that wraps up the show for today. Reminder to like, subscribe, and give us 5 stars. If you want to see the studies, including that link to see Chaser, the dog, which I think is a pretty cool video. It's only 2.5 minutes. It'll blow your mind. Go to my YouTube page at youtube.com/Dr. Greg. Also, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discover, hit me up on socials at Ask Dr. Greg. I saw that somewhere on the screen earlier. This is Dr. Greg, Brian, and Gus bidding you farewell until next time. Be present, be flexible, and be kind.